Our fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The OUTA Hour, where your voice matters.
Hello and welcome to the OUTA Hour. I'm Tom London, your host for the next 60 minutes. It's a special edition of the OUTA Hour tonight as we focus on the arrests of two of the Gupta brothers arrested in Dubai this week. We'll talk about the case against the Gupta brothers as well as the likelihood of extradition to South Africa. State capture. What happens next? We discuss accountability on the OUTA Hour tonight. And let's take you behind the scenes, shall we, to our production team. Samantha van Ispen is off tonight, but our producer, Stefanie Davids, is standing by. Let's say hello to Stefanie. Hello, Stefanie. Stefanie, you there? Hello, Stefanie.
Yes. Hi, Tom.
There you
Hi,
are.
everyone.
We were waiting in suspense. The OUTA Hour producer, Stefanie Davids. You're looking forward to the show tonight, Stefanie?
Yes, I am.
Well,
Very excited.
so are we. Thank you for putting it together. Now, in your Facebook comments tonight, you'll find Masego Motsoeneng is moderating. Let's say hello to Masego in her home office. How's it, Masego?
Hello everyone. Welcome. Glad that you could join us tonight.
When you chat in Facebook tonight, know when you see the OUTA handle, Masego Motsoeneng will be chatting to you. Now, off to YouTube we go, where Ilse Sazwiel, who's been on the show before, will be representing OUTA in the comment section. Hello, Ilse. How are you tonight?
Hi, Tom. Glad to be back.
It's good to have you back. Are you looking forward to the show?
Of course, always. And especially this one because OUTA did such great work in helping to expose the Guptas.
We'll be talking about the Guptas tonight. We've got a star-studded lineup. Remember, your comments and your questions are valuable on this show. We want them from you. Shall we start with some of those comments and see who's on first tonight? Let's see. Claire Feldman is first this evening. Claire says, evening, Team OUTA. We'll pop a couple of comments on quickly. Don't forget to like and share the show. Melissa Whitehorn joins us from Pretoria. Hello, Melissa. Thank you for joining the OUTA Hour. Stefanie Fick will be on your screen tonight and inside your comment section. Stefanie says, how's it? Freddie Mills says, the Gupta Hour. Well done, with a thumbs up, says Freddie. Rudie Heyneke will also be on the show and on your screen tonight. Rudie says, good evening, Outarians. Michael John Billsbury says, hello, OUTA. Jeff P. Scott says, good evening, Tom. And everyone else. People are joining from around South Africa and around the world. We welcome our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Hilda Mayer says, hello to the OUTA team. Carl Edwards says, great work, OUTA organization, undoing tax abuse. Keep going. Faiza Ravat says, good evening, everybody. Hello, Faiza. Welcome to the show. Evelyn MacDonald says, okay, she's got that's handled by the moderators. Claire Feldman says it's been a good week for OUTA and the MPA. Stefanie Davids, our show's producer, is in the room and says, hello, everybody. Rachel Fisher down in Cape Town says, good evening, Tom, the team, and all the supporters. Trevor Ward says, good evening, all. They join in thick and fast tonight. Ashley Elof Muller says, hi, OUTA. Nice to be back. Ashley from Joburg. We'll do one or two more. Let's see who we got. Anna Kutsia says, hi, guys, from Moroleta out in Pretoria. Hey, Stella Turas Fanikak says, evening all, and we'll pop more of your hellos. Don't forget to put where you're from, and if you're a first-time viewer, put that in the section as well, the comment section, that is. It's at this point that we ask you to like and share this program. That's how we get it out to more and more people. Well, let me introduce the guests to you this evening. We will start with, why don't we, ladies first. Let's start with Stefanie Fick, the Executive Director of the Accountability Division at OUTA. Hello, Stefanie.
The Tom and everybody. Yeah, I am joined by esteemed gentlemen tonight. So looking forward to the discussion. I mean, I don't think Rudie knows more about state capture than I don't know someone that knows more about state capture. And we are joined by Advocate Du Toit, who knows, I think, also more than most about extraditions and so forth. So this is going to be fun. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. And you mentioned Advocate JJ Du Toit. Advocate JJ Du Toit is the former Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions in Johannesburg, also head of the Extradition Desk. And Advocate Du Toit worked as a team leader and trial attorney at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia in The Hague, Netherlands. An esteemed guest we have this evening, Advocate Du Toit. I'm going to call you JJ from here on because you gave me permission. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you to all your viewers. I'm looking really forward to have this discussion with you, and thank you for inviting me. It's a real pleasure.
The pleasure is ours. And then, as Stefanie said, nobody knows more about the details behind state capture than our very own Rudie Heyneke. Hello, Rudie.
Hi, Tom and Stefanie and JJ. Welcome, JJ. And I think we're going to have a nice discussion tonight.
Rudie is OUTA's state capture portfolio manager. Let me start with Stefanie Fick, because we've discussed the Guptas so many times on the show before. Every week we have a viewer or two. I'm thinking of Clive Beckett, who says, when is somebody going to be arrested or charged, etc., etc.? Well, it's a big one. These are the big fish. And let me ask Stefanie, did you expect this, Stefanie? I mean, did this come? I think for most South Africans, this came as a surprise. Many questioning the timing, but be that as it may, a great development in terms of fighting corruption. Did it surprise you?
No, I think this is what we were hoping for. That eventually, everything will fall into place, and that this will happen. Yeah, I've heard talks about the timing of the whole thing. I think we've been asking for accountability, and want the Guptas in South Africa. I think it's a little bit of a vindication for the NPA. There is life, and they are doing something. I mean, I saw an article about they were delaying the matters. I mean, I think if you work for any state department, sometimes things are just slower than it's supposed to be. But things happen. Someone must still prove me wrong. The wheels of justice are turning sometimes very slowly. It's very slowly, but it is turning. I mean, Rudie and I was at the Portuguese embassy, had a very interesting discussion there. And what was important to them is that in South Africa, the three corners is civil society, which is strong, the criminal justice system, and freedom of speech. So, it's good to see that there's life in our justice system.
Let me ask JJ for his reaction to the arrests. I mean, we've had, I don't know, how long have we been talking about this? 2 or 3 years on the show. It's been a long wait. And Stefanie always assures us, those of us who go, hold on, it's taking too long, Stefanie. When are we going to see arrests? And Stefanie runs through the legal process and says the wheels of justice turn slowly. Don't worry, they turn. Would you concur with what your esteemed colleague Stefanie Fick has to say? JJ, is this around the right time frame for a case this big?
I can tell you, Tom, I fully concur with her. Sometimes I thought I was the only person that remained positive. Just a little bit of insight. When I worked at the International Court in Yugoslavia, we had this one guy who was a political leader, Radovan Karadzic. We were looking for 12 years for him before we arrested him. It took 8 years in court with all the court cases and the appeal. Eventually, he was, his conviction of genocide and life imprisonment, were confirmed. But it took 20 years. So, we're only 3 years now. It's not so, don't be worried. This thing will happen and they will stand trial and they will, eventually, I think, things will be done. So, this is not too long for me at the moment.
Now, let me tell you, I'm just going to extend my question, if I may. We've got a viewer, got lots of viewers who come on every week, and many who say, when are we going to see arrest? We've got one particular viewer, his name is Clive Beckett. And every week He says, it's taking too long. When are we going to see arrests? Nothing's happening. And, recently I've been watching his comments come up on the screen and going, we really don't have an answer for Clive. But tonight, the door has opened to state capture prosecutions, so to speak. Is this the beginning of big things to come? Should we see this as a precursor to more charges being laid against more high-profile people, politicians and business people?
Yes, I think so. I think, we've got now in the ID, we've got Andrea Johnson. She's a very competent prosecutor. Hermine Cronje was also good, but she got more the asset forfeiture unit background. So I think it's absolutely the right time now for Andrea to take over. And, these cases unfortunately take long. I've also been involved with a lot of human rights abuses and that type of thing. But, the thing is you must have your ducks in a row and you can't go and prosecute too quickly. Just look what on international level when they try to prosecute the president of Kenya and his vice president. That case didn't get off the ground. Why? Because they prosecuted too early and you cannot afford. We always say as a type of us working on this organized crime because that you must have 120% case if you take on these big guys because they got good counsel and your ducks must be in a row. So I would rather wait a little bit than rush into prosecution and then at the end you've got egg on your face.
Well, let me throw the first viewer question at you this evening. It comes, or statement rather, and ask you to respond to it. It comes from Christo Fenter. He says, I don't think any Gupta or Zuma will ever go to jail. Let me push the former president aside for a second because he is old and he has been delaying. His lawyers have been using what the media calls Stalingrad tactics to delay his day in court. Would you think the same would happen with the Guptas? Do you believe that if found, that they'll be found guilty and that they will go to jail?
I'm very confident in the legal processes that because remember now, after the extradition, if that's favorable, they will come to South Africa and they will have to stand trial, probably in a high court in Bloemfontein. I don't know whether the NPA will add other charges. That is, at the moment under consideration. But I strongly believe they will come to South Africa. They will have a fair trial. And if there's, proper evidence led, I'm convinced that, the result will come. It's just too early for one to say this way or that way. Because remember now, everybody, whether you like that person or not, they're innocent in the law until they're found guilty. So I don't want to make predictions. Sure. But all I'm trying to say is they will come. I believe strongly they will come. They will get a fair trial. And that is for me, the most important thing.
Got it. I was looking at comments from Leonard van der Leitgaard saying, I'm afraid to say the justice system is very slow in South Africa. Too many loopholes and appeals. Stefanie? Stefanie?
For my unmute button that has shifted for some other reason, I'm certain that Zoom is playing me a fool every time it sits on a different button. But in any case, just for 1 minute, this is not an excuse. For me, it's an explanation. If you are ever faced with being wrongly accused, you find yourself behind bars, you find yourself facing criminal charges, you find yourself being accused of something you firmly believe you did not do. Believe me, you want to have a criminal justice system like South Africa's, where you have the right to a speedy trial, where you have the right to a trial, where you have the right to represent yourself. So, it is conflicting rights that we need to balance. Yes, we want this to happen quickly. We want people behind bars. But on the other hand, always remember that the same system is there for guilty people and is there for not guilty people. And we have a system where the state, on a balance of probabilities, have to prove that you are guilty. You also don't want the court to put you behind bars because of hearsay. I'm going to go off the point because we had this whole argument about this whole Cyril Ramaphosa case. And guys, whether I like the guy, whether I want him to be the president or not, or whatever political game the guys are playing, I've never heard so much nonsense in an affidavit like I've read about the complaints against the president.
Can you explain that to us, Stefanie? Because this is a hot topic at the moment. I mean, I was watching the EFF presser yesterday, where Julius Malema was calling on civil society to, join the fight in removing the sitting president. And we've seen this before. We had the Zuma Must Fall campaign. We can call it a campaign where people took to the streets and said, we don't want this president anymore. We knew back then that we were starting to see that we had this rotten core in the executive in South Africa, and there was hope that the new president, then deputy president, who would go on to win the elective conference at the ANC and become our president, would offer us a better deal when it comes to accountability and corruption. Now we have opposition parties, for example, saying, get rid of this president because we did it once before. And I understand the argument. Well, I understand why political parties would want to do that, because they'd like to see the destruction of the ruling party for their own benefit. It makes sense. But for the average South African who stands up and says, go, Ramaphosa, who comes next? Is our next president David Mabuza? Is there an elective conference at the end of the year that Cyril Ramaphosa isn't in, and then we have President Ace Magashula? There's so much uncertainty if you remove this president the way many are calling for him to be removed. But I'm fascinated by what you have to say about the charge sheet, because for most of us who are not legally minded or don't have legal minds, it didn't look, it just looked like a statement, charges, etc. And we've got no cooking clue when it comes to the law. So why did that charge sheet grate you, so to speak?
If they prove something, or if they show that there's evidence against Cyril Ramaphosa, who's the sitting president, or any president, there must be accountability. I think civil society has fought hard enough for accountability. In our history with state capture, we need accountability, and hopefully there will be. But if you think about the circumstances when the statement came out and the evidence, or the so-called evidence in this affidavit, it is really ridiculous. And the only thing one can think is that this is a political ploy. And that is what's sort of wrong. Of what went wrong is because of this political games that were played, and people just playing this because they want to make money. So this affidavit starts off by alleging that the president is guilty of money laundering and corruption. And when I read the last sentence, I still don't know why we are saying that there's even allegations. Let's say they never get any other evidence. Why they would say there's money laundering. The fact that you may have an enormous amount of money under your mattress, that doesn't mean money laundering. People do not understand the meaning of money laundering. Now you have a person that was a minister previously that is accusing a sitting president of a very serious crime without having any basis. I'm not saying that they might uncover money laundering, and yes, then he should be held accountable. Mm-hmm. But to make certain assumptions and to jump to certain conclusions on hearsay. Arthur Fraser was not a witness to any of this. I'm sitting here, I don't know who was. There's talks of a lot of people. None of this was witnessed by this alleged accused. This accused have got enormous amount of monies and in his house that was taken, and this makes him guilty of. It is just. What I really want is just please investigate this. But why this is such a tragedy is because this is now made known for whatever reason, and the only deduction I can come to is that this is very it's tailor-made. It really it screams of, we need to do something in order to create a certain dialogue, and that a certain faction is trying to throw something at the sitting president. And it pains me to sort of become, it feels like, I feel like I need to take a bath because they force us to speak about political stuff. And I think we've had enough. But I mean, if this is what we have, it is really ridiculous. I just hope that they investigate this nonsense. And if there is something, then obviously,
Sure.
please let us prosecute him.
Got it.
Can
Well,
I just say this?
Yes, of course.
Then, with regards to all the other people that there was allegations against, and it's going to say, but we wanted people to be removed because of other allegations. Guys, there's a difference between speculation and looking in a crystal ball and think you know what happened versus here's evidence. Here is viva voce evidence in a Zondo commission that implicates certain people. We are not grabbing it out of the air. I mean, we as an organization has been fighting hard for accountability because there's evidence. We are talking literally about, it really sounds like a fiction novel. It makes us so angry because we fight hard for accountability, and then they say, okay, now the president is accused of something. Where's accountability? Unfair.
A lot of questions coming in from our viewers on some of the technical sides of extradition, money being paid back, etc., etc. So we got a lot of questions coming in that I'd like to put to you and Rudie and Advocate Du Toit. But let's start with the latest updates on Transnet. Rudie, what have you got for us?
Well, Tom, I don't think that there were too many changes from the appearances, 2 weeks ago, that Friday when Eric Wood, Siyabonga Gama and the rest of the gang appeared in court. But we must be mindful that the 13th of July, there's another appearance, and it was on record from the spokesperson of the NPA that there will be, at that time, they will bring more accused to court. And I do think that a few big names will be on the charge sheet, in the next appearance.
Well, let me move on to the Guptas for a second and ask Advocate Du Toit about the Guptas and why they were arrested. We're seeing questions coming in, for example, from Debbie Stephenson, who says, will the Estina Free State issue only be addressed, or the entire state capture issue in terms of the Guptas? I was reading something in the media just yesterday that put this idea forward that when you want extradition, you've got to have all your ducks in a row. You've got to have all the charges on the charge sheet. Your entire case needs to be put down before you can get them back to South Africa. So could you just explain to us, JJ, what were they arrested for? And is there a possibility that more charges will be added before or after extradition? How does that work?
I think it's very good questions. Let's start from the beginning. Remember now, the red notice was issued on the case in Bloemfontein. And that was a case of 25 million. We know the facts. It's about a year ago. So because they were futures of justice, normally what you do is that you go through the Interpol channel and say, all right, I'm looking for a person, or persons in this case, that is allegedly committed these crimes, and I want you to assist me to trace them. Now, the Interpol organization will then circulate that red notice to all its members all over the world. It's on the computer, and if they see a name pick up, they will stop you and they can detain you. Now, it's important to remember that red notice was only issued on that only case. It was early days. And that was it. So when they were arrested in Dubai recently, that was on that case only. Now, what's the practice is, what will happen now is that, we also signed a treaty, as you know, which is a good thing. It's not necessary. There's a misconception that you have to have a treaty.
Is that treaty signed? Are all the I's dotted and the T's crossed?
No, that thing is, it was published in the government gazette on the 1st of April. It's now April Fool, 22. And everything is done. There's nothing wrong with that thing. It's in operation. But, Tom, just a quick reminder, it's not a requirement that there must be a treaty. You can extradite without a treaty. I've done cases to Brazil.
Okay.
There's no treaty. It's committee. It's international. But let's leave that for the moment. So what is very important now is, remember now, a red notice is only a notice. It's not an extradition application. It's not a warrant. It's just a notice to another country that if you find that person, please let us know. So this is what happened. Dubai let us know. South Africa, we've got these guys. Are you interested? we say, yes, we are interested. And now the legal documentation and the legal process kicks in. And then according to the treaty, what you must do now is you must request provisional arrest and extradition of that person, of that persons. Now, what you do normally is a very short document that you just tell the other country, yes, I'm still interested in this matter. This is the counts that I want him to be prosecuted for. I've got a warrant for him. And can you please detain him now under, call it Dubai law or Arabic law or what the law is in that specific country?
Yeah.
Because remember, that other country must make sure now that the crimes that we want to prosecute are also crimes in their country. You know, you can get strange incidents like adultery, for example, a stupid, maybe example. In some countries, a crime is not a crime in another country. So that is normally where you tell that country, please arrest provisionally. And now, if you do that, we will provide our full extradition application where we put everything in within 60 days. That's what the treaty says. You must do it within 60 days. Now, the counts is a very important question that. Surely, you must tell them that the counts are the ones from Bloemfontein. And well, that's why you got the red notice for you.
Sure.
You must include it. But you can also include other counts. And I think that at the moment for the NPA to consider is what other counts can we add to the counts in Bloemfontein. And that must be disclosed now to the Dubai authorities in the provisional arrest application and subsequently when we file the full application. Because you're quite right, you have to give the other country a sort of a synopsis of what your case is all about. You can't extradite for investigation purposes. If you don't have a case, don't try it. You know, you will lose it and you will egg in your face. So your ducks must be in a row. And I think at the moment, what I know from previous experience is the NPA is considering what other charges to the Bloemfontein charges can be added when we ask for extradition to Dubai.
JJ, do we know where the Guptas were arrested?
I'm telling you, my friend, this is one of the questions I also wanted to know. Because remember, I can tell you, it's unusual for a country on its own to arrest somebody in this way on a red notice. Normally, when that arrest takes place, it's when it's on an airport or, you know, somebody want to leave the country or you know, there's some issues and then they arrest him. Now, it seems to me, from what I've read, that the head of Interpol in Lyon in France, he also comes from the UAE. So, and the UAE has been severely criticized from not exercising, you know, their rights to do these things. They signed other treaties that, you know, we can't go into now. So I think there was a lot of pressure on the UAE to do something. And the fact that the head of the Interpol is from the UAE, I think was an additional bonus for South Africa, if I can put it that way.
Yes.
And that is the reason why I arrested. But I think this evidence will probably come out because, you know, there's some lawyers that's already there from South Africa to assist and that type of thing for the Guptas. And they will probably try to have a type of a bail application. And in that bail application, this evidence as to where they had been arrested maybe will become more visible. But I would love to hear, you know, where it was at a luxury house that we believe they were, or was it on their way to an airport or something? We don't know that yet.
The scoop isn't in yet. Here's a question from one of our viewers. Carl Edwards says, I have a question. Will we have the right people prosecuting the state capture accused? It is the only way we can be sure that the right processes are followed. I mean, will they put a top team on this? And the reason I ask this, I think the Senzo Meyiwa trial, when we're watching this live footage of it at the moment, and a lot of people have been left unimpressed with the decorum, for example, of the defense advocates and the general state of affairs with investigations inside our forensic division in the police force. These kind of conversations that I hear people having going, oh, our standards, man. But you have a really good working knowledge of the NPA. What's the caliber of the attorneys and the advocates that will be placed on this case?
Remember with these high-level cases, if you talk about the Guptas and you talk maybe of other high-level people that will probably still be prosecuted, this is not easy cases to do. I can tell you that. And I think, we've got expertise in the NPA. But I personally, I know from previous cases, for example, there's a case at the moment in Joburg, you probably know about the Porret case.
Yes.
It's a case that's been running now for a few years. There's the prosecutor in that case is an advocate from the bar. He was appointed by the NPA just for that case. He's not involved with other cases. Now, internationally, it is not uncommon to appoint a prosecutor from outside the prosecutions division. Say, for example, somebody in private practice that is very familiar with these type of cases. That is, I can take even some of the evidence leaders at Zondo. The guys that work with this type of case, because, they're not cold on these cases. They know what the hell is going on. So I would really recommend a combination of private lawyers and lawyers in the NPA, maybe some junior. I was also a junior, many years ago. And I can't tell you the experience that you gain in going with a senior person who's got the experience to see how the thing is working. It's also for you a development of your career. And I think the combination of private lawyers and local lawyers within the NPA would be the ideal combination in doing, for example, a case like the Guptas. You need a senior lawyer who's an SC to run this case. Because I can tell you, they will have SCs on their side, that I can guarantee you. So we need to match them with a senior, respectable person that can run the case with other prosecutors that will also be part of the case. That is my view on this.
Now, we've got viewers who play devil's advocate on everything on the show. Yes, Yunus Vahid.
No, that's good.
I like it. I mean, I enjoy being pushed and challenged. I really do. Here's Yunus. Yunus says it's going to take 10 years before the Gupta brothers appear on a South African court. Watch this space. Could it take that long?
No, I don't believe that.
Not?
To be honest, I just finalized when I was in NPA, this Manuel Chang case. He was the Minister of Finance. It's now been decided to go to the Constitutional Court, decided that there's no leave to appeal him as he'll be tried in America. That case took us 3 years, from arrest, through the extradition proceedings, through the court cases and everything. Now, I don't know how the legal system works in Dubai. They've got a complete different legal system than us in South Africa. Remember, we're common law here.
Yeah.
They got a different legal system. Now, from the little I know they much more quicker than maybe other systems. But I think the proof of the pudding will be in the eating. I don't think it will take so long.
Okay.
And yes, it will take a time. Like Stefanie said, any person, if you're in that position, you will make use of your right to a good lawyer, and you will test the system. That is what they're there for. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think it will be so long.
Well, you got your skeptics in the room, I must tell you, because I see.
Yes, that's fair.
Yes.
People can say that. I can understand where they come from, because yes, a lot of people said they will never come. Never, ever will they come. Now they're here.
Got it.
Not a year.
Got it. Okay, well, yes.
Let's take it from there and see.
Yes.
We never know.
Yes, Andries Monama, he says a lot of people are happy about it, but let's face it, once they're extradited, they'll go on medical parole, they'll move in with Zumik or Nkandla, and we'll never hear about them again. This is a country being led by ex-convicts. I don't have much faith in the justice system.
Yes, I hear where you're coming from, and, sometimes if you take for a shake that he, went on parole and he's still, it makes a mockery of the system.
Yeah.
I understand that, and I'm also upset about those instances. But I think, I'm a bit, I'm mainly an optimist. Yes, sometimes I also, not so much. But I think it's a positive development, ladies and gentlemen. Please, we mustn't overlook the importance of what has happened. And we must believe in we've got a good legal system. Yes, we've got some problems. And yes, Mr. Zuma has exploited that. But I think we've learned a lot through this, and I'm very positive that this thing will, in fact, stand the test of time. But the jury is still out.
Yeah.
I can understand that, but I'm more positive than I was a few months ago, I must tell you.
Got it. Well, if you've just joined us, welcome to the OUTA Hour, with you for another 26 minutes until 8 p.m. tonight. If you're watching live, remember you can put your comments and questions down below in the comments section on either Facebook or YouTube. Our guests tonight, Advocate J.J. du Toit, Advocate Stefanie Fick, and Rudie Heyneke join us to answer your questions. Pop them in the comments section. Lots of questions coming in. We're going to select as many as we can. Let me ask Rudie about the charges that they are facing, the Free State charges, so-called Free State charges. Rudie, what are the current charges?
Well, mainly, or let me start off by saying there's 17 accused in that case. Only, I think 6 of them has been arrested and appeared. Iqbal Sharma, his brother-in-law, and the people from the Department of Agriculture in the Free State. On the official side, PFMA charges, and then there's money laundering charges and fraud charges brought against the rest of the accused. Where the 2 Gupta brothers and their wives came in is that at the end of a big movement of money from this account to the other and back and forth, eventually they received around about 20 million of the 25 that was paid out by the Department of Agriculture in the Free State. And that ended up in a company, a Gupta company called Island Site, where Rajesh and Atul Gupta and their wives are the directors, and they are charging in terms of the criminal law in their capacity as the directors of the company. So, but I just want to add to what JJ said, and I think I'm sharing his optimism. If you look at this Free State case and the current Transnet case before court, and we all know that OUTA has been, closely involved and worked together with the NPA at some stage on some of these matters. And I do believe that there's enough evidence. It is, for the NPA to prepare well and to put the docket together and get all the technical issues out of the way so that a trial can start. But I am also, optimistic, in especially these 2 cases, that there can be a successful prosecution.
Rudie, do you expect more charges to be added?
I don't think more charges, but I do believe that more accused. Not so much in the Free State case, but in the Transnet case, definitely, I think there will be more accused being brought before court.
Well, let's change gears for a minute and speak about extradition, because there are a lot of questions coming in around the extradition process. When I think of extradition, I think of how impossible it's been to extradite accused from Australia, for example. The Brett Kebble murder comes to mind, and some of those suspects have never faced the music in South Africa. Is it likely, JJ, that we're going to see the Guptas extradited? And here's a question from Leonard van der Leitgarten, who says, how long for extradition if all goes according to book?
Yeah, I think I can fully understand that people want sort of timelines and understand, yes, we were waiting so long, how long is it going to be again? And, people, for what has happened over the past few years, one can understand it. But I think everything must be put in perspective. As I said to you in the beginning, the NPA's got 60 days now to file the formal proper extradition application, if I can call it that way. In that application, one will now, when it's introduced into court, will probably then also made public, then you will see for the first time now, except now for the Bloemfontein charges, which we know will be there. But there may be other charges that they want to add, to the charge sheet, because the issue with extradition, and it's probably not so well known, there's a rule in extradition, it's also in the treaty, it's called the rule of speciality. Now, what that means is that if you ask for extradition, and you ask for 6 count of fraud, etc., for say, for example, say for the Bloemfontein case and Transnet and that, if that person is extradited and he appears in court, you cannot now add another count or another charges to that count, because you have, when you apply, have to exactly say what the charges you are going for this person to be prosecuted for. If other charges can be later added, but then you also have to inform that country that, we've asked for this is additional charges that we want to go, will you have any objection in order to extradite them? This is how it works internationally. It's not just the Guptas, it works internationally like this. So the process depends on the legal system of the country. And as I've said, I don't know enough of the legal system. We must understand that it will probably be according to Arabic with the I can't know the specific legal system that is there, but they've got different legal systems. If you go to the UK, it's common law. If you go to France or Netherlands, it's civil law system.
You've got Islamic law in the UAE,
It's Islamic. It'll probably be some sort of Islamic law. We know what happened with Saddam Hussein. How did that guy's tried? He was convicted. Within a week, appeal was refused, and within a week, he was extradited. He was, hanged. So that took in 2 weeks. Now, I'm not saying they're going to follow that procedure in Dubai that quickly. But the thing is, you have to give the right of the person that is being asked to be extradited also sufficient leeway for him or her to prepare their trial during the extradition process. And doesn't matter who you are. Every country in the world works like that. It's not just South Africa, that's it. So give them sufficient time. He will appoint lawyers that will challenge it. But I think if we do a proper application from South Africa and we do it with the necessary diligence, I think we will be successful. Because remember, extradition is not a trial. It's not a trial. All that they say, there is sufficient evidence for you to go back to your country, and then when you're being tried in South Africa, then you will have your full rights of everything during the trial. But it's not a mini trial extradition. That is normally run on papers, on documentation. There's no witnesses that will testify and that type of thing like in a normal criminal trial. But you also want to make sure, and the other country also want to make sure, that there's at least sufficient evidence for him to be sent back to the country of origin. Yeah, there must be some fairness.
Sure. I'm thinking of the words flight risk. We know the Guptas didn't stick around in South Africa very long. They got in that ZSOAK jet of theirs and jetted off outside of and gone. They were gone, and we've never seen them again. If they will the perhaps it's an unfair question because we're delving into the legal process in Dubai, but your best guess perhaps, will they be eligible to apply for bail once there's this red notice and they've been arrested? Could they apply for bail in Dubai?
I don't know the legal system, but I can imagine that there will be that opportunity to do so. But remember now, if you're a flight risk, that will be one of the factors that any court in the world will take into account when they consider whether to grant this person bail. For example, and that is why as we talked before, what were the circumstances when they were arrested? Were they just at their house watching TV and the police walked in and arrested him? Because then they will say, but I had no intention to flee this country. You never know what the facts are until you hear them. And I think we'll have to wait and to see for that. But, I know the lawyers who went overseas. I've also appeared against them. They're very competent lawyers from South Africa. So they will look at all avenues there because they're being paid by the client to do the best that they can do for them. But I think it will be very, very difficult in the circumstances of this case for any bail to be fixed. But, this is just a view. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but You know, from previous experience, it's very difficult to get bail under these circumstances.
And now what you were saying earlier, you'd love to know where they were arrested, what the circumstances were, because if they were climbing up the steps to getting onto a private jet to flee Dubai, that would make things very different, wouldn't it? Let me ask.
It would.
Let me ask Stefanie Fick about the local bail conditions. And here's a comment from Adair Cross. Adair says they will get out on bail here. Stefanie, what do you think?
Well, bail is normally about, bail proceedings is not about whether you're guilty or not. Bail is about whether you will stand trial. The court wants to be sure that you will come back for every appearance. You will be in court so that justice can take its course and that we can finalize the matter. So it really is about, do we think that they will stand trial? I think I have to agree that they will. I think they will find it difficult to prove that they will stay put because they have the means, they have the ability. What you can suggest, and that is normally what the defense do, is I will hand in my passport. I will report to the police station. I've heard so many horror stories about accused actually coming to court and say, listen, you wanted me to go and report to the police station. They don't even know I have to report. They didn't have a book where I need to sign. So I just don't think our system is foolproof. In the sense that you can give people with means and ability to give them bail because you can't monitor them. But let's see. I mean, again, it is the state will have an opportunity to say, why bail should not be given. It will probably be, I have to think now on my feet. I don't know if this will be a Schedule 5 and 6 to be very technical. It depends on what type of crime they are eventually found guilty of. Charged with,
sure,
and whether it's Schedule 5 and 6, and it depends on who needs to show what. So sometimes it's the accused that needs to show that there's circumstances why they should get bail, otherwise they will remain in custody. But I think the circumstances here, for me, I think sort of leaning towards, I hope the state opposes bail, because that, for some other reason, if people are in jail, the process goes on fairly quicker than it is when they are on bail.
Sure. And here, understandably so. Debbie Stephenson says bail shouldn't be considered given that they've already proved to be a flight risk when they left here initially. JJ, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I agree with that. I think for the type of crimes we're looking at, with our legal procedure here in South Africa, the onus will be on them to show it's in the interest of justice for them to be released. And I've done many extradition applications in South Africa, and I can tell you, if you're talking about cases of this magnitude and of these things, they normally don't get any bail because of the fact that they are fugitive of justice and because of the seriousness of the offenses and that. The judges are normally very, aware of the circumstances in the case. I'm not going to prejudge this thing, but I think the facts. And, it all depends also when they extradited, for example, what are the charges that they will have to face?
Yeah.
And that is normally, as Stefanie said, it's not a question, if you're guilty or not. It's the question the court must look to the charges. And that's why it was so interesting in this case last week. The prosecutor did not disclose that indictment because he agreed to bail. Because normally the first thing the defense asks you is, where's the indictment? Because I need to make sure whether the onus is on me or on the state to apply for bail. And you have to give him, it is a right. But if you agree to bail, like the prosecutor did, it's not necessary to show that indictment. So I'm also suspecting that there are more names on that indictment that will probably later be added. That is why, in a certain extent, that wasn't disclosed to the defense because there was no objection against bail.
Stefanie, why is this important for South Africans and South Africa? I mean, when you zoom out and you look at our country, we see corruption everywhere. I mean, when I use the word everywhere, I don't use it lightly. Everywhere. You can go into any ministry, you can go into any municipality, you can go into most supply chain agreements, and you're going to find some sort of kickback or some kind of quid pro quo or scratching each other's back almost in every corner of South Africa. Why is this one particular case so important?
I think it is important because they brought South Africa to its knees. I think we are now seeing the devastation that corruption can cause. Let's take the petrol price. Because of the economy and the policy and the fact that we probably will not, we struggle to get investment in South Africa. The rand-dollar exchange rate is a nightmare. We can see the effects. Do we have a rail system left? Because we don't have money to maintain that. Load shedding, because Eskom was literally, like Judge Zondo said, was controlled by the Guptas. It was, the bottom fell out. Now the people need to get Eskom back on track. There's political interference. So why so important is because we've seen the devastation. And I think there needs to be some accountability. And I think it is actually sad that we are all discussing, three brothers and how glad we are, and then we're not because it's going to take a while. So it's a whole conversation about these individuals, which is good. And I think it is extremely good news. But may I just say this? We also need to discuss, what are we doing? Not just historically, but going forward, what are we going to do to eradicate corruption in South Africa? Because what happened after state capture? PPE corruption.
Yeah.
And that politically, we need to seriously start tackling this issue because it has an impact on all levels of society. And you can say what you want. It really is horrific, the amount of corruption. But just looking at Rudie can tell you the sheer magnitude of state capture. Of course, they need to come here so that they can stand trial and that we can finally, if they're found guilty, that they can go to jail.
Well, we've got a few minutes left with Advocate JJ du Toit. Let me put this question to him from Claire Feldman. Claire says the Transnet corruption was far bigger than the Estina dairy farm matter. Why doesn't the MPA extradite them on that basis?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, as I tried maybe to explain a few minutes ago, the red notice was issued on the Bloemfontein case. Now, I don't know the status of the other cases that they allegedly are involved in. We haven't seen any announcements publicly except the Bloemfontein case. So, as I've said, and I think at the moment, knowing how the system works, there will be big debate in the NPA as to what other counts they can add to the ones in Bloemfontein. And it may be the one that she's mentioning will be added, but I can't tell that. I'm not involved with that, and I think it will be irresponsible for me to make some announcements without knowing what the facts are. But I can assure you that there will be debate on these issues. It may be that there's maybe some other investigations and some indictments that's pending that hasn't been released, but we're speculating now. I think at the moment we know the Bloemfontein case. Hopefully there will be other cases that will be added. If not, you can put a type of a caveat in the extradition application to say that in due course, after certain investigations have been completed, we may request the country again to also allow us to add other counts which may not be part of the extradition application at the moment. Because let's just talk this thing through. Say, for example, I'm just taking as an example.
Yeah.
The case will take a year or two to do. Now, in that period, it's not that every other thing are stopping here. We can still, at a certain stage when we're ready, and when we're ready, that's the important thing. We can still then add a supplemental request or anything else and say we want to add this to our original application. It's a very fluent situation. And I personally think it's in the interest of justice that we should get as most cases possible that we can prosecute them for, that is trial ready and we're ready for it. But I cannot, what cases they are, I cannot talk on this at this stage because I don't know.
Got it, and we won't force you, I promise you, Advocate du Toit. Let's see, Rudie Heyneke, what does OUTA predict the next steps will be? Rudie, make a prediction. We're going to squeeze you, Rudie.
Like I said earlier, the 13th of July, the next appearance of the 6 accused in the Transnet case, that will be very interesting. I think some of the questions that Jaja just, left, or answers that he didn't give, maybe some of the answers will be given there, and maybe the indictment will be made public and we can see who are the other accused. I do also want to say that, remember, a few weeks ago, the NDPP announced that 9 seminal cases, will be brought to court within the next 6 months. That tells me, and obviously after that, 2 cases have been in court, the Rehabilitation Fund case as well as the Transnet case. So it shows me that they are ready to proceed with more cases. And hopefully they are ready within the 6 months. And I think exactly what JJ said then is that in the 6 months coming and new cases, new charges, we will know and see if the Gupta brothers and the Gupta family and hopefully Salim Essa would be charged on serious allegations.
I'm looking at some of the comments coming in to clean up the comments now. Madeline Gutsch says, all in, I think this will send looters a clear message. Caroline Marks down in the Cape says, there are thousands of Gupta wannabes out there. Clear warning needs to be sent. I'm thinking of recent developments in the Hamilton Glovu story where he has now been banned or barred from doing business with the state. Perhaps if we barred more and more business people who have proven to be corrupt in their dealings with government and stop them doing business with government at the same time, charge those who have been involved in corruption and malfeasance, that the right message will be sent. Slowly but surely you'll know that in South Africa, if you steal taxpayers' money, you go to jail. Right now the situation is not that, I don't think. We've still got a way to go. Let me echo what Claire Feldman has said tonight and thank Advocate du Toit for the great explanation and also for his contribution on the show tonight. Advocate du Toit, we've got a minute or two left. Is there anything you'd like to add to this conversation for the benefit of our OUTA Hour viewers?
My friends, I think one mustn't underestimate what has happened with this arrest of the 2 Gupta brothers. It's a phenomenal development. Yes, a lot of water must still go into the sea before we get them here and we get them tried. I know that, but you should never give up. We've got a lot of experiences all over the world. As I explained to you, I worked internationally. Sometimes when we looked for this carriages for 12 years, I also got pessimistic and said, will we ever find this guy? But at the end of the day, we did. We gave him a trial. He was convicted. He was sentenced to life imprisonment. It took us maybe 18 to 20 years, but justice was done. And we should never, ever give up. Even if it takes time, we get pessimistic sometimes, and I can understand that people get there, but never lose hope. And we must just get on and get it done because we owe it to our country. We owe it to a lot of poor people that didn't get money where they're supposed to get it. And I think at the end of the day, maybe in a few years' time from now, hopefully we will have dealt with some of these cases because we absolutely need these prosecutions. I'm convinced about it. And we must get good teams, experienced people that come from the private sector and come from the public sector to do these cases because our whole reputation as a nation depends on how we're going to deal with these prosecutions. And we mustn't mess up yet. Thank you.
Well, I hope we have you on the show in the future because I, for one, have thoroughly enjoyed the show with you tonight, Advocate JJ du Toit. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. And we hope it's not the last time. You've brought a lot of energy and knowledge to the OUTA Hour, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And a good night to you. And let's say good night to the rest of the team. You see them on screen now. Rudie Heyneke and Advocate Stefanie Fick representing OUTA on the show tonight. Thank you both for your time this evening and can't wait for the next chat on the OUTA Hour. Thank you, Rudie. Thank you, Stefanie.
Thank you, Tom, and thanks to the two former prosecutors that I could share the room with.
And good night to you, Stefanie. Fick, you know, you've got a fan club here. People that blow kisses and hearts at you are on the show. So I think they deserve something in return. Eh? And there it is.
There's a little heart. Everybody. This show is excellent. Thank you, team. Thank you, Tom and Advocate Atoy. It was an honor. And Rudie, thank you.
Yeah, you did great work. You should really compliment yourself. You know, it wasn't for you, a lot of these things would not have been exposed. So you also have to take a credit for this, really.
And that's the team on the Outer Hour tonight. Well, that's it for another Outer Hour for the next 7 days. We'll catch you again on Facebook Live and YouTube Live next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Make sure you join us on the live show because you get to interact with our guests. Put the comments and questions in the comment section down below the video. For the next 7 days, I wish you love. I hope you get it. I hope you receive it. I hope you give it. I wish you a bit of money in your pocket. I wish you warmth because it's going to be chilly over the next week in South Africa. And most of all, I hope that you come back next Wednesday at 7 p.m. to join us on another Outer Date. Don't be late. 7 p.m. is when it is. Until then, I'm Tom London, and I miss you already.
Our fight to eradicate corruption, maladministration, unethical leaders, and the abuse of taxpayers' money by those in power continues. It's fresh, it's fearless, and focused. The Outer Hour, where your voice matters.